All right. So, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, do you give me permission to interview you?
Absolutely.
All right. So, let's get started. What will you describe? Will you describe the differences that you observed among students from a rural setting that have been exposed to early childhood learning compared to those who came from more of a homeschool setting without any form of prior focus on formal learning?
Early childhood education is extremely important for socialization skills as well as an opportunity to be introduced to academic tools like computers and iPads, things that the family might not be able to afford or want to purchase.
All right. What have you observed from students of a rural setting that demonstrate areas of need for readiness?
They have a greater need for social and emotional growth.
Okay. Will you share some ways or suggestions for parents and community from a rural setting that will increase awareness of the importance of being school ready to learn and keeping on track throughout the school years for continued success?
Woo. Well, all behavior is learned. So if the parents are invested in their child's education, the child will pick up on that. It's all a question of attitude, and if education is considered a priority, then a child will consider it a priority as well.
Will you describe some advantages and disadvantages that schools of rural settings face with 21st century learning and creating an equal opportunity for those students to continue to challenge themselves to pursue growth and success?
Technology. With technology, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in touch with any part of the world at the tip of your fingers. It's all about the technology.
In your opinion, and based on your own experiences in your current rural setting, what are your suggestions for recruiting and retaining teachers to work in the rural community?
Bottom line is money is the greatest motivator. And I work in Tennessee because I choose to. But I know that my colleagues, my friends from New York and California, one, they still have a union, and two, they make at least 55% more money than I do for doing the same job. So when I retire, I have to worry about that. Some of my friends have already retired, and they make more money retired than I do coming to work every day.
Wow.
So that's psychology 101. Money is the greatest motivator.
Did you purposely seek to teach at a rural school? If yes, why?
Yes, because I like the challenge.
How did your college education prepare you for success in your current classroom?
I'm going to have to say it didn't, from an academic point of view, but when it comes to the day-to-day interactions with kids and the problems that they bring to the table, it didn't. My own life experiences were much more of value than what I learned in the college classroom.
What struggles did you anticipate in your classroom based on your previous understanding of rural schools and students?
The same thing you would anywhere else, that you're going to have some children that are going to excel, you have other children for whatever reason are going to struggle, and you have to meet all of their needs.
How involved are you in the school's surrounding community? How often do you interact with parents and surrounding communities of your school?
We have an open house every year. We have parent-teacher conferences. I call parents if I have a success story for them. I don't just call with problems. I make sure that they know who I am and that I'm as much on their side and their child's side as they are. They need to know that children spend more waking hours in the classroom than they do in their own homes. And parents need to know that they're putting their child in the hands of somebody that gets it.
Have you had a position at a school not considered rural? If yes, what were the differences and similarities between the school, community, and the rural setting? If not, did you have any preconceived notions about the rural classroom that were changed or met during the course of the time spent there?
That's interesting. My very first experience, I spent 3 years working for a small private Christian school. And most of the students there were there because the parents were genuinely invested in their child's education and spiritual education as well as academic. But then I also had it's either this or military school, and I had those that were trying to dodge having their child labeled as special needs. So you still had a really, really diverse population of students, but the parents were genuinely invested in their child's education because they were paying for it above and beyond.
What is one word you would use to describe your teaching experience in a rural setting, and why would you choose that word to describe it?
Rewarding.
Why?
Because it's when you see that light bulb go off and you know that the child really gets that concept, that's what we're here for. That's what it's all about.
What are some strategies you think the school, community, or government and other educators or parents or anyone involved in education of your students could do to provide better opportunities for the class?
Okay. This is a real issue for me because I look at all that lottery money and I say, okay, they're giving it to college students. What about to the public schools that are trying to get the children to the place where they are able to go to college? We need to give them the skills and the resources to get there. Otherwise, they're never going to make it to that college level. It's not going to happen. They need it here at the foundation.
How do your own life experiences prepare you for teaching diverse groups of students?
I grew up in a very poor urban environment. So I get what's happening in many of the families that I work with. And my kids know that I'm not just here to get a paycheck. I am here for them. They have a built-in BS detector, and they know if you're on their side or not.
How do you prepare your classroom and students to be culturally aware?
Well, I have a real opportunity to do multicultural literature, as well as the fact that we are a nation of immigrants. So when I teach U.S. history, I really drive that point home.
In a few words, how would you describe your experience with diversity in your classroom?
I have been an ELL teacher as well as a Gen Ed teacher, and every single classroom I've been in, I've had children that are from other countries. And having that ELL background has really helped me to be able to accommodate all my students.
Please describe several successes and challenges regarding cultural awareness and multiculturalism at your rural school.
Well, in the rural setting, you usually find that you have a lot of migrant workers. So what's frustrating is they don't stay because they have to follow the crops. So that time that you have with them is very precious. And you know you'll see them again next year, but only for maybe several weeks before they move on. So you make every second count.
Please describe what you would consider a global citizen.
A global citizen is somebody that's aware that they are a global citizen, that we get things from every part of this world, whether it's food or it's clothing or it's music or whatever, that we are not isolated, we can't have tunnel vision. Everybody is a human being, everybody.
How can teachers make more of a leading role in the multicultural revolution in rural school settings?
I really don't have an answer to that. I would love for somebody to give me an answer to that, and I will try to follow through. That one's a tough one.
How would you describe the level of parental involvement at your school?
That's rather difficult too, because when you work with a population of parents that are lower income, many of them have jobs that keep them from being able to be involved with the school. Some don't even have telephones, and some are speakers of other languages, and unless you have an interpreter, you can't speak with them. But I try to get an interpreter whenever possible, and I call the numbers, but a A lot of times the numbers are either disconnected or they're bogus numbers, or you only get as far as voicemail. So you have to depend on the students to take the notes home or to share that information with their parents.
Overall, what level of priority or importance on education would you say the majority of your students' parents encourage in their children?
They want their children to be invested in gaining employment that is going to be profitable. And I have a child of my own, and I want the same thing for my child.
Does your school implement a character education program?
Yes.
And if so, what does it look like?
Jeepers. We have second period every day, a social emotional component to our program. It's the 7 highly effective traits for teenagers, and we work on that on a daily basis.
How do you think your personal values affect your classroom's environment?
Significantly, because you are your life and nothing else. Salsa. And I make it very clear to my kids, I said that you're not who you hope you're going to be or what you're striving to be. You are what you are right now. And if your life were to end today, what would be the sum of your life? I try to help them take some ownership in how they're choosing to live their lives.
As a rural school teacher, what values do you believe your students' parents expect you to teach at school? And is this reinforced at home?
The value of hard work, the value of actually getting an education, something that's going to be, it has to be meat and potatoes. They don't care about the esoteric, they don't care about the philosophy.